Well, good afternoon, everyone. Buenas tardes con todas y con todos. Welcome to this special event on Indigenous Peoples Food Systems for the future of food, biodiversity, and climate action. I'm going to pass straight away to Atama Katama, who is going to perform an spiritual opening ceremony. Over to you, Atama.
Adil Katalino, Bachuramin Ka Saruga, Basengat Ka Jubata, and Kopisunduan Kopisanangan, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, ambassadors of the United Nations. My name is Atama Katama, and I come from a village known as Tambunan, Sabah, in East Malaysia. From the third largest island of the world, I come from the spiritual ancestry of the indigenous peoples known as the Dayak people. May I ask for your permission to recite a prayer in our Austronesian language. Thank you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Kepada Tuhan Yang Maha Esa dan malaikat kekuatan alam sejati, kepada Tuhan di Gunung Kinabalu, kepada Tuhan di Gunung Bawang, kepada leluhur kesatuan Gunung Suci, kesatuan langit dan bumi, kepada Ratu Bumi, kepada Ratu Laut, kepada leluhur tanah air kita, kepada leluhur yang ada di tubuh kami. Saya memohon kepadamu untuk memanjangkan berkat untuk kesucian, keamanan, kebaikan dan keberkatan kita semua. Berkat untuk kemanusiaan, kecerdasan, keberanian, taat setia, menerima dan menghormati keberadaan orang asal di bumi ini. Saya mohon berkat daripada leluhur yang sudah tiba melalui laluan jambatan alam kayangan bagi memberkati kami semua. Berkat untuk kemanusiaan, memberkati kami dan negara-negara United Nations untuk meneruskan tanggung jawab mereka dalam kuasa dan tadbir urus mereka yang baik di dunia ini. Saya mohon berkat khas untuk semua pembahas-pembahas yang datang daripada 7 rantau benua orang asal, serta juga untuk pimpinan negara FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization, dan semua kaki tangannya, agar diberkati pertuturan pendengaran mereka, agar pancaran kepintaran yang tertinggi dari Allah Ta'ala bersemai dalam hati dan minda mereka demi segala kebaikan untuk bumi tercinta dan masyarakat orang asal dunia, khususnya di Asia, yaitu di pulau kami, Borneo, Kalimantan, yang dijaga oleh kami suku Dusun dan Iban di Malaysia, dan Dayak di Indonesia. Terima kasih adu-adu, aki-aki, nenek-nenek, datu-datu yang datang memberkati. Arus rapus, arus rapus, arus rapus. Adil Katalino, Bachuramin Ka Saruga, Basengat Ka Jubata. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Atama. Thank you so much for your opening words. May they accompany us during the discussion. My name is John. I'm the head of the Indigenous Peoples Unit, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Secretariat of the Coalition on Indigenous Peoples Food Systems. Now, 100 years ago, General Levy, also known as Deskahe, came to the League of Nations, and he was representing and bringing the voices of 6 indigenous nations. And he found the doors of the UN shut, and he was not allowed entering. We just celebrated in Geneva last week 100 years of the trip that Deskahe did with other indigenous leaders to talk in front of nations, to talk in front of states, and they saw that they were not allowed entrance. Ever since, this has been a journey. It has been a trip together to learn from each other, to learn from indigenous peoples, to put indigenous peoples at the center of discussions and to honor them as right and knowledge holders. We can all learn together for betterness, and this is what we are here today. But it's very important to allow them to speak with their own voice and not to mix them up with local communities, farmers, fishers. It's important to listen to them as indigenous peoples. We are all doing an effort within the SDGs, and we say that the spirit of the SDGs is leaving no one behind. And let me reassure you that for those institutions that do not work enough with those behind, those institutions will be left behind in the process. It is an opportunity to put indigenous peoples and many other groups at the front of many of our discussions. This room is of particular significance for all of us working on indigenous peoples. It was here in 2018 that FAO organized for the first time the high-level expert seminar on indigenous peoples' food systems. And as you will recall, one of the main conclusions was the consensus among countries, technicians, policymakers to create a global hub as a think tank to advance the research and the evidence gathering on indigenous peoples' food systems. It was in this very same room that the Coalition on Indigenous Peoples Food Systems was born in 2021 during the pre-summit of the Food Systems Summit. So the coalition is an opportunity for all of us to do the right thing, and the time is now, in a time of climate crisis and biodiversity lost. The coalition has two very simple objectives, and is not a very large coalition. We always thought that quality is more important than quantity, and that listening to each other in the spirit of the reciprocity, solidarity, and circularity of indigenous peoples was the right approach for our coalition to go about. But let me pass straight away the floor to Honorable Vital Bambase, who is coming as an expert on behalf of the UN Permanent Forum of Indigenous Peoples. Honorable Bambase, tell us please, why is this coalition of indigenous peoples' food systems important for the UN Permanent Forum of Indigenous Peoples? Over to you.
Merci, Yon. Bon après-midi à toutes et à tous. Comme il vient de le dire, moi, je suis honorable Vital Bambase, je suis de la communauté autochtone et batois du Burundi. Et c'est un honneur pour moi et pour toute ma communauté d'être ici. Honorable Excellences, chers panélistes et participants, chers frères et sœurs autochtones, distingués délégués, Mesdames, Messieurs, tout protocole observé. L'organisation d'une session spéciale dédiée au système alimentaire des peuples autochtones constitue certainement une étape importante vers la promotion de relations équitables entre les peuples autochtones, les Nations Unies et le reste du monde. Je souhaite donc exprimer ma gratitude à tous les organisateurs et tous les participants et participantes ici présents dans cette salle. Il me tient alors à cœur de rappeler que l'organisation de cette session spéciale n'aurait pas été possible sans soutien des États qui ont appuyé la requête que nous avions adressée pour avoir une unitaire participation des peuples autochtones. Nous regrettons cependant que la voix des peuples autochtones ne soit pas entendue comme elle devrait, en vertu de nos droits comme ceux inscrits dans la Déclaration des Nations Unies sur les droits des peuples autochtones. Les peuples autochtones avons déjà su nous battre pour être entendus depuis 2021 à l'occasion du sommet des Nations Unies sur le système alimentaire. Mais jusqu'à présent, les représentants des peuples autochtones tiennent encore une place marginale dans les discussions du groupe consultatif sur l'engagement et le réseautage des parties prenantes. Que faut-il plus pour nous faire entendre? Plus d'urgence et de pression sur nos systèmes alimentaires continuent à se manifester. Certains frères et sœurs peuples autochtones ont été réinstallés jusqu'à 5 fois au cours de leur vie après avoir perdu l'accès à leurs terres et du fait de l'empiétement illégal sur les ressources. Nous faut-il alors plus de preuves de la durabilité et de la résilience de nos systèmes alimentaires? Le livre blanc, WIFALA, coordonné par la plateforme mondiale sur le système alimentaire, donne plateforme d'exemples en ce sens et convaincu le groupe scientifique du sommet en 2021 de la durabilité et la résilience de nos systèmes alimentaires. Mesdames, Messieurs, distingués invités, chers délégués, prenons un moment pour réfléchir sur ce qu'a dit Son Excellence Antonio Guterres, secrétaire général des Nations Unies, lors de l'ouverture de la session de 2023, dans sa 22e session de l'instance permanente des Nations Unies sur les questions autochtones. À cette occasion, il a salué la participation renforcée des peuples autochtones à travers les plateformes établies au sein des processus des Nations Unies, y compris les efforts pour la lutte contre l'insécurité alimentaire qui s'observe partout au monde chez les peuples autochtones. Il a également exhorté à apprendre des expériences des peuples autochtones et sauvegarder ses connaissances des peuples autochtones. Sur la base de cette déclaration, je souhaite souligner l'impératif pour l'humanité d'apprendre des peuples autochtones et d'embrasser leurs connaissances transmises depuis de temps immémoriaux, de génération en génération. Nos systèmes et connaissances traditionnelles ont un potentiel transformateur face à la crise multidimensionnelle à laquelle fait face l'humanité actuellement et auxquels problèmes différents auxquels sont confrontés les différents peuples au niveau mondial. Nous sommes au courant qu'au sein du système des Nations Unies, divers espaces de dialogue et d'interaction existent. Cependant, aucun d'entre eux n'était dédié au système alimentaire des peuples autochtones. C'est pour combler ce gap que nous avons créé la coalition sur le système alimentaire des peuples autochtones au niveau mondial. Il est une plateforme spéciale où les peuples autochtones peuvent collaborer avec les États pour formuler des politiques et planifications communes au niveau national, régional et mondial, notamment en ce qui concerne le système alimentaire des peuples autochtones, mais également au sujet de leurs droits à la terre, territoire et ressources naturelles et aussi les semences. Dans ce contexte, la coalition sur le système alimentaire des peuples autochtones revêt une grande importance pour l'instance permanente des Nations Unies sur les questions autochtones. Parmi plus de 20 coalitions traitant de différentes questions, elle est la seule qui existe et qui est axée sur la promotion du système alimentaire des peuples autochtones. L'instance permanente des Nations Unies sur les populations autochtones que je représente ici soutient tous les efforts de la coalition sur le système alimentaire des peuples autochtones et elle mérite également vos soutiens multiformes. Au sein de la coalition, les peuples autochtones sont titulaires de droits et politiques et peuvent être abordés de manière collaborative et concertée. Nous reconnaissons qu'il existe plusieurs processus de discussion qui traitent de la question des peuples autochtones avec les communautés locales. Mais chez nous, les peuples autochtones, et surtout au niveau de l'instance permanente, sur l'instance permanente des Nations Unies sur les questions autochtones, nous souhaitons vivement demander à toutes les instances des Nations Unies de stopper et cesser d'utiliser le terme communauté locale en conjonction avec les peuples autochtones. Cela représente un recul pour les peuples autochtones dans leur parcours ardu vers les reconnaissances de leurs droits d'une façon distinguée au niveau des pays. Et nous profitons de cette opportunité pour rappeler que les États qui nient l'existence des peuples autochtones, et surtout en Afrique, sont bel et bien existent selon les critères d'identification des peuples autochtones au niveau mondial, Donc il faut éviter de confondre les peuples autochtones avec l'indigénité qui est amenée en Afrique par la colonisation européenne. J'encourage les États qui, de tout acteur, à rejoindre la coalition afin que nous travaillions main dans la main en plaçant les peuples autochtones au centre. Et par là, nous invitons les États africains et asiatiques de rejoindre cette coalition parce que jusqu'ici, nous n'avons pas encore enregistré des pays autochtones, plutôt des pays africains et asiatiques qui se sont inscrits au niveau de la coalition. Je profite également de cette opportunité pour exhorter le port de la coordination sur le système alimentaire des Nations Unies à inclure les peuples autochtones dans les activités qu'ils organisent dès le premier jour et ne pas prendre un seul segment pour les peuples autochtones. Avant de clôturer, j'aimerais remercier encore une fois le gouvernement du Kenya qui, avec la collaboration avec FAO, compte organiser un séminaire de haut niveau des experts sur le système alimentaire et les connaissances des peuples autochtones en Afrique qui se tiendra prochainement à Nairobi au Kenya vers la fin de cette année. Nous invitons les représentants des États à y participer massivement et faire leurs recommandations qui seront formulées par les peuples autochtones, les leurs. Je vous remercie de votre aimable attention. Que Dieu vous bénisse toutes et tous. Bon après-midi.
Thank you so much, Honorable Vital Bambase. Thank you so much for those words. We are going to move on with the agenda. And, excuse me. Oh. Hello? Jose Andres? Well, congratulations for all the work you do in the One Shelter Kitchen. We are in the plenary. Oh, no, you have sent a, okay, so you want to join the discussion. Okay. So, Josie, I don't know where is Josie, but apparently...
Hello, everyone. I am Chef Jose Andres, and I'm here to talk to you about a topic close to my heart. Indigenous food systems play a critical role, not only feeding the bodies and souls of communities everywhere, but also protecting and healing our planet in amazing ways. For thousands of years, indigenous communities have been cultivating and nourishing this planet, embracing sustainable practices that we all must learn from. Their connection to the land, knowledge of biodiversity, and respect for their environment are a source of inspiration, not only for chefs like me, but for anyone who seeks to build a healthier, more sustainable future for all. Let me tell you why these food systems are so critically important. Not only do they produce delicious and diverse cuisines, but they also play a pivotal role in mitigating the effects of climate change. Whether it's native crops that are often more resilient to extreme weather, or farming practices that require fewer resources and have a smaller carbon footprint, indigenous food systems should inspire us to seek more ways to feed ourselves with dignity and heal the planet at the same time. I have seen firsthand the unintended harmful effects of how we grow and prepare food to feed the world. In the aftermath of climate disasters, I have witnessed food systems that have unfortunately become part of the problem when we should make them part of the solution. I do believe that the only way forward is empowering local food systems and celebrating the riches of our planet's heritage. we must ensure there is a seat at the table for indigenous communities when we come together to build a better future. So let's share knowledge and use collaboration to create a more resilient, more sustainable, and more delicious global food system where our planet thrives and everyone can eat. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks to you, José Andrés. What a surprise. You have always been supporting the coalition and the work of indigenous people, so that's very nice. So let us move straight away to Her Excellency Jennifer Mojica, Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development of Colombia. Minister, thank you for being here with us today. Why is Colombia interested in the work of this coalition?
Bueno, muy buenas tardes. Muchas gracias por esta invitación, especialmente a la coalición de los pueblos indígenas. Realmente me siento muy honrada de estar aquí y que precisamente sea yo que esté en este momento ratificando la intención del Gobierno de Colombia de ser parte de esta coalición. En mi vida pasada he tenido la oportunidad de trabajar durante 10 años con pueblos indígenas de Colombia. En Colombia existen 115 pueblos indígenas, lo que llena al país de una riqueza cultural y de saberes ancestrales invaluables para este momento que está atravesando el mundo. Un momento en que como sociedades debemos reevaluar la forma en la que estamos extrayendo los recursos y en la que estamos viviendo, y una forma de repensarnos para enfrentar el desafío que representa garantizar el derecho humano a la alimentación en procura con la armonía con la naturaleza y con la madre tierra. Los pueblos indígenas son parte fundamental de las transformaciones de las que hemos estado hablando en esta agenda internacional. Transformaciones urgentes, transformaciones en las que los pueblos indígenas pueden tener y deben tener un papel proactivo y de liderazgo mundial. Específicamente, en el momento del cambio que vivimos en Colombia, debemos partir del reconocimiento de los pueblos étnicos para construir una paz estable y duradera y para poder superar esta crisis ambiental y social al que nos enfrentamos, unido a los desastres naturales y al hambre. La participación de los pueblos indígenas es indispensable. Los procesos de decisión deben considerar todas sus posturas y visiones, y en este momento de volverse a pensar la manera en la que vivimos, además de ser urgente y obligatorio, es aconsejable en la medida en que podemos aprender de ellos y de sus prácticas y costumbres. El propósito de esta coalición es avanzar en la soberanía alimentaria de los pueblos indígenas bajo un respeto o comprensión y reconocimiento de sus sistemas propios de vida, haciendo una inclusión y proporcionando evidencias sobre los aportes sistémicos que cambian o que pueden marcar un derrotero en el cambio en la manera en cómo vivimos. Por ello, queremos hacer parte de la coalición, porque consideramos que los dos objetivos que persigue, de aumentar el reconocimiento y respeto y de difundir y ampliar esos conocimientos y prácticas ancestrales, sus semillas, su forma de mantener una relación de convivencia y reconciliación con la naturaleza, son deseables para la prueba que tenemos que superar como humanidad. Por ello, agradezco y aplaudo esta iniciativa y cuenten con la República de Colombia, con el Gobierno Nacional, en hacer parte proactiva y en acompañar a nuestro presidente, que justamente es colombiano, es de un pueblo indígena de nuestra costa caribe. Desde el Gobierno Nacional de Colombia hemos venido avanzando en el reconocimiento de los territorios indígenas a través de figuras de resguardo, que son territorios inalienables, imprescriptibles e inembargables de protección constitucional. Un tercio de la extensión territorial de nuestro país, principalmente en el bioma amazónico, está protegido y conservado gracias a la gobernanza y formas de gobierno propio y autonomía territorial de los pueblos indígenas. Con ellos tenemos pendiente espacios de conservación y espacios de desarrollo sostenible. En Colombia respetamos la consulta previa, libre e informada, e inclusive el derecho de objeción de proyectos que afectan la autonomía de los pueblos indígenas. Para nosotros son unos aliados y afortunadamente en este gobierno del presidente Gustavo Petro tenemos las mejores relaciones. Así que esperamos aprender de esa sabiduría ancestral, de esa superioridad ética y moral que tienen los pueblos indígenas, los pueblos originarios, para que estos hermanos menores puedan ir de la mano en esta senda que tenemos como humanidad y superar para siempre el hambre en el mundo. Muchas gracias.
Muchísimas gracias, ministra Jennifer Mójica, por esas palabras y por recordar a nuestro presidente Darío Mejía, quien no podía estar acá con nosotros de Pueblo Zenú, porque está presentando el informe del foro en Nueva York ante UNFSS+. Gracias, ministra. Vamos a continuar. We are going to continue. And we have two very important guests that also wanted to be with us today. His Excellency Jonas Gahr Støre, Prime Minister of Norway, and Her Excellency Sonia Guajajara, Minister of Indigenous Peoples of Brazil. Let us play their interventions, please.
Excellencies and delegates, dear friends, I send you sincere greetings from Norway. As Prime Minister, I am proud to say that my government is fully committed to transform the current food system into more inclusive and sustainable ones. We have to do that. And in doing so, we must work with the indigenous peoples all over the globe, because they serve as guardians of vital parts of the world's remaining biodiversity, which is crucial for the sustainability of our planet. Therefore, I am glad that the role of the indigenous peoples and their contribution to sustainable food systems globally have been put on the agenda. Food systems are the basis of existence and our economic and social and cultural development. Today, we celebrate the stock-taking moment of the United Nations Food System Summit. We acknowledge the commitments made towards more sustainable food systems. And as a founding member of the Coalition of Indigenous Peoples Food Systems, Norway is actively engaged in these efforts. Our coalition is centered on achieving zero hunger, safeguarding biodiversity, promoting inclusivity, and recognizing indigenous peoples as important contributions for a healthier planet. The coalition has my full support. So this occasion is an opportunity to underscore the lessons imparted by indigenous peoples, their resilience, their adaptability, and their commitment to biodiversity preservation make them invaluable sources of knowledge. In fact, indigenous people have developed food systems that coexist with diverse ecosystems by employing their time-tested knowledge and experience, learning by doing through the centuries. Take my country. In Norway, the reindeer husbandry makes effective use of local resources, and it adapts to the changing seasons. The varying diets of the reindeers throughout the year results in healthy meat, contributing to food security in my country. Furthermore, reindeer husbandry is vital both as a means of livelihood and as bearer of tradition for the reindeer herders and family. Good management of the resource base is necessary in order to achieve production and profitability. Every year since 1976, the Norwegian State Administration and the Sami Reindeer Herders Organization negotiate an annual agreement on economic measures for the reindeer husbandry sector. These negotiations are very important. They have long traditions, as I said, and they have contributed to the development of close cooperation between the state and the reindeer husbandry industry. Our collaboration was able to deal with the difficult winter conditions on reindeer pasture land, both in 2020 and 2 years later. Cooperation and dialogue are necessary to find good solutions when several societal interests sometimes conflicting interests, have to be balanced. And these may, for example, apply to the use of pastoral land in some of the regions in my country. So there are lessons learned throughout history. We need to take every benefit of that. And in closing, I want to say that Norway also recognizes the vital role that indigenous youth play in ensuring the survival of these food and knowledge systems. The new generation must be heard, involved, and listened to. So, through the coalition and Boyosu Food Lab, Norway proudly supports the second Global UN Indigenous Youth Forum to be held during the World Food Forum in October at the FAO headquarters. Norway also endorses the My Food Vision Is campaign. That campaign seeks to support indigenous youth in biodiversity protection, climate change mitigation, and food systems transformation. Norway remains committed to creating a sustainable world and achieving zero hunger while protecting biodiversity. We know we are not there yet. We know it is probably going in the wrong direction. That's why we really have to mobilize for change. This commitment has led us to become one of the founding members of the Coalition on Indigenous Peoples Food Systems. So now I extend my invitation to all of you to join us in these collective efforts and to support indigenous peoples. Thank you so much for your attention.
Olá, gente. Aqui quem fala é Sônia Guajajara, ministra dos Povos Indígenas do Brasil. Este evento está ocorrendo num momento muito decisivo. Este mês de julho está sendo apontado pelos cientistas como o mais quente da história mundial. O Sistema Internacional dos Preços dos Grãos continua mostrando que serve mais aos interesses do mercado financeiro do que, de fato, atender às preocupações de combate à fome. Não à toa, o combate à fome é uma das preocupações centrais do nosso presidente Lula. O Brasil quer uma ampla aliança mundial para a preservação da biodiversidade e o combate à fome e também o combate à desigualdade. E nós, povos indígenas, somos decisivos para estes processos. A nossa relação com a natureza, que vem de nossas culturas e conhecimentos milenares, indica qual a melhor maneira de proteger a biodiversidade e de como garantir alimentação para toda a comunidade. Temos muito a ensinar para o mundo e isso é urgente. Por isso, os sistemas alimentares indígenas são fundamentais. Esta coalizão é fundamental e este evento, que busca integrar a produção de alimentos, o combate à fome e o enfrentamento às mudanças climáticas, desde que acate as contribuições indígenas, também é fundamental. Desejo um bom encontro para vocês e tenham o Brasil como importante aliado para todos estes processos. Muito obrigada, um grande abraço.
Thank you so much, Minister Sonia Guajajara and Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Støre. Let us keep those words in the back of our mind, that we are probably going in the wrong direction and we need to mobilize, and this is why we are here. Let me pass straight away the floor to Bafran Roy. He's an elder from the Khasi people. He's a founding member of the coalition, and as a vice president of IFAD, he has been an indigenous leader that has been a reference for all of us here in Rome. Over to you, Bafran.
Excellencies and friends, on this stock-taking moment, it is important to remind ourselves that we live in a world that is obsessed in feeding ourselves. We have plowed large tracts of our planet, damaging our soils, and the trillions of microbes beneath us that work together to create such complex life forms that only now we're beginning to understand how little we know. We have deforested large areas of our landscapes, killing wildlife and spreading desertification. We have poisoned our rivers and oceans. And we continue to use fossil fuel despite the current climate breakdown. And we have done all this in the name of feeding ourselves, yet millions go hungry every day. I belong to an indigenous matriarchal community of Northeast India, which follows a value system very different from mainstream thinking. Every day, when a meal is prepared, a handful of rice is kept aside to share with unexpected visitors or community members in need. When a child is born, the umbilical cord of the newborn is tied to a tree to signify our bonding with Mother Earth. For us indigenous peoples, our relationship with nature is sacred, and our core values of caring, sharing, and community actions have emerged out of this relationship. We can be one of the game changers towards a more human, a more nature-positive, and more value-driven food system. Apart from our social and cultural values, Indigenous Peoples Food Systems also offer some risk management initiatives at different scales. For example, the diversity of our local food systems nurture pollinators and natural pest management organisms. They help us to build resilience. Our predominantly rain-fed systems do not inundate fields and produce no methane as in conventional food systems. The forests in the fallow lands have made our local food systems as inherent carbon sinks and low emitters of greenhouse gases. We work in communities to supplement school meals with nutrient-rich local wild edibles. We are supporting and seeking to characterize indigenous food system using FAO's 10 principles of agroecology. Our early results from India and Mexico have shown that the indigenous people's food system can be considered to be highly agroecological. But indigenous food systems face challenges such as political drivers and knowledge loss, as some of our own community members are drawn to the illusionary gains of extractive initiatives. Forging partnership amongst all nature-based systems is therefore very important for us. We need also to co-create together a research framework built on contemporary science and traditional wisdom, but as equal partners. We need assistance to develop, as I said earlier, a dedicated cadre of indigenous youth to scale up our best practices. We are grateful to the chair of the UN Scientific Committee of the UN Food Systems Summit, who in 2020 proactively encouraged indigenous peoples to document our knowledge. I also want to thank people like Dr. Shakuntala, with whom I had the opportunity to work during the action tracks, and the other scientists of the Soil Coalition, especially Dr. Ratan Lal and Leanne, who are interested in helping our work. We need to be acknowledged that we are a people like yourself, because when you consider someone less than you, as it happened to us historically, it's easy to ignore them, and it's easy to do nasty things to them. But then we cannot learn from each other, even if our future depends only on that. Let me end with a quote from Pope Francis in his encyclical Laudato Si. Indigenous peoples are not merely one minority amongst others, but should be the principal dialogue partners. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Frank, and thank you so much for quoting the Pope, who has been a supporter of indigenous peoples for a long time. Let me pass straight away to Tanya, Dr. Tanya Eulalia Martinez-Krupp. Tanya, please share with us what are the objectives and main ongoing activities of the Coalition on Indigenous Peoples Food Systems.
Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today in this session. I want to start my message by saying that, like Fran has said, we've been committed for centuries to preserve our planet. And as we were 2 years ago in the United Nations Food Systems Summit, we are here again, despite all the challenges and struggles that we face. In 2021, let me make some history, John, if you allow me. Indigenous leaders around the world, the chair of the United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues, came together to advocate for a coalition on Indigenous Peoples Food Systems. Despite we were told many times, we managed to get this coalition thanks to our collective action and the support of 7 member countries: Canada, Dominican Republic, Finland, Mexico, New Zealand, Norway, Spain, FAO, and other UN agencies. Why is that we needed this coalition? We need to recognize, like Fran mentioned before, that policies have been detrimental for indigenous peoples, even though we have shown to be safeguarding 80% of the world's remaining biodiversity. And if we want to continue making of this world a sustainable one, we need to support indigenous peoples. So the goals of our coalitions are to strengthen, reinforce indigenous peoples' foods and knowledge systems. But as we said, we are willing to work with all of you. And the second objective is to disseminate and scale up indigenous peoples' knowledge and best practices with the potential to transform global food systems at large, as we have done for centuries. So yes, 2 years ago, we created our coalition against the odds. And we know that many of the coalitions that were created in 2021 have disappeared, and we are still here, as we have been here for centuries. So what is that has made us strong? I mentioned our collective action and the space of work that we create, not only to work with indigenous peoples, but with other actors. So what we did last year was to appoint representatives from different regions of the world, because a premise that we have if we want to make inclusive process is like nothing about indigenous peoples without indigenous peoples. The second is because we know that we live in such a diversity of environments, we needed to run consultations to learn what were the needs and priorities at a policy level from the different sociocultural regions. Just to mention some of the actions that are happening and that some of my sisters and brothers will describe in a few minutes. We aim to support, for example, processes like the reformulation of the Code of Conduct of Toxics and Pesticides, biocentric restoration if we are concerned about a sustainable planet, water security, acknowledging that water is not only water and a resource, but it's linked to our ways of living in a deeper way, that we are right holders, not stakeholders, so we have to recognize the role of territorial rights, acknowledge that there are pastoralist communities, reindeer and hunters, like the Prime Minister of Norway mentioned before, that we also want to reinforce our food systems through certification and labeling processes that can help us. Last but not least, we are also working with other coalitions. For example, recently, we had a presentation, or we explored some ways of collaboration with school meals programs, and also we have developed an assessment study to address the importance of cultural appropriateness of school meals in Latin America. And we want to see also how governments are taking these differentiated programs and what else can we do. We have mentioned also the centrality of youth. If we want to focus on children, and we want to focus on knowledge holders, and we want a prosperous future, we need to engage youth in a more meaningful way. And my sister Jessica will explain much more how we are exploring collaboration with indigenous youth. So, just to finalize, and to don't take long, I want to make you an invitation. If we want to protect the planet, if we want to transform sustainable food systems, if we don't want to leave anyone behind, come and work with us, come and learn from us. We have shown you that we have knowledge and practices that can help us to make of this planet a sustainable one. And our coalition, it's a collective space of work. So reach to us and work with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tania Eulalia, for those powerful words. I want to pass the floor to Rochelle Diver, Rochelle Diver is the treaties advisor in the International Indian Treaty Council. Rochelle, the International Indian Treaty Council has been advocating for years, and thanks to your work, now it is possible to reformulate the Code of Conduct of Toxics and Pesticides. Why is this so important for indigenous peoples and their food systems?
Thank you, Jan, for that kind introduction and that important question. First, please let me introduce myself and my people. It's a very important first step for us, as I am careful not to speak on behalf of them, but honor them with my words. I sit in front of you today as an Anishinaabe woman. We are indigenous peoples residing in what is now known as Canada and the United States. I am a citizen of an indigenous nation, Fond du Lac Band of Lake Superior, Ojibwe. It is the land of 10,000 lakes, and we are hunters, fishers, and gatherers. Unfortunately, our food systems are contaminated through no fault of our own. Our fish are filled with mercury, PFAS, and other persistent organic pollutants, or POPs, as they are known, as a result of coal-fired power plants, mining, and other extractive industries, and excessive pesticide production and use. So yes, Jan, thank you for the question. Indeed, we are now finally seeing action towards reformulating the Code of Conduct. And this is due to decades of work by the International Indian Treaty Council and impacted indigenous peoples. Please also allow me to pay my respects to them, as I am only contributing to the important work and foundation that they have laid and still continue to pave. Pesticides are inextricably linked to environmental violence committed upon indigenous peoples by both state and non-state actors. The term environmental violence, officially acknowledged and accepted by the United Nations, points to the deliberate nature of these actions. The use of pesticides impacts indigenous peoples all around the globe, contaminating our lands, waters, food, and ecosystems, undermining our reproductive and intergenerational health, and threatening our cultures and ways of life. In this regard, the IITC has begun working with FAO on amending the Pesticide Code of Conduct to respect and uphold the rights of indigenous peoples as outlined in the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. I'd also like to take this opportunity to express our appreciation to Mr. Balgungu from the Pesticide Unit here at FAO and his supportive team and for partnership. But how did we get here? Let me share a piece of testimony submitted to IITC by an indigenous mother of 6. The airplanes spray chemicals on the crops, and it affects the town and its inhabitants. In and around the whole town, there are large tanks holding hazardous chemicals. Many people have died here. One little boy did not understand the serious consequences and went swimming in a canal where they were spraying and holding chemicals. He got leukemia. Another man also died from the same disease because he had fertilizers in his house. And a young man died just last month because where he slept, they stored toxic substances. He absorbed them all, and he didn't last long, and there was nothing that could have been done to save him. This is the serious nature of what we are discussing here today. Unfortunately, indigenous people's ability to seek redress and access justice is very limited due to discrimination, corruption, and lack of protective laws. In addition to our right to free, prior, and informed consent, as affirmed in Article 29 of the UN Declaration, the use of hazardous materials in our lands is not currently being protected by state or international standards. However, it's important to note that FAO has adopted a policy on indigenous peoples recognizing our right and acknowledging the UN Declaration. Now let us ask ourselves, why are some states banning highly hazardous pesticides in their own country but continuing to export them to developing nations? Why are children having to bear the brunt of corporate greed? I invite you to visit the FAO webpage or iitc.org to learn more about the Pesticide Code of Conduct and what it will take to amend it and bring it in line with the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Let us be reminded that it's the children that we are trying to protect. Many of our children are being born pre-polluted in the uterus as a result of environmental toxics. The size of the global chemical industry exceeded $5 trillion in 2017, and it is projected to double by 2030. How can we meet the Sustainable Development Goals at that rate? In conclusion, I leave you with this. Respecting Indigenous rights and valuing Indigenous traditional knowledge is the rightful path forward towards a true sustainable global food system for all. Pesticides and agrochemicals are not the answer. Our future generations deserve a toxic-free future. Let us commit here today, together in solidarity, to move towards a clean and healthy planet for all. Chimigwich, many thanks.
Thank you so much, Rochelle, for those powerful words. And we need to reflect together on this contradiction that some chemicals are banned in the countries they are produced, yet they are sold. Perhaps we need the help of the Vatican, Monsignor, to help us reflect on this moral duality that we have. No? Please help us out in the coalition to reflect on all of these questions. They are important for the future of the planet. But let me pass straight away to Costa Rica. It is a great honor to have Carla Mena Soto, the Director of the Office of Extension and Agriculture and Livestock from the Ministry of Agriculture of Costa Rica. Carla, bienvenida. And we know that Costa Rica is a country that also recently joined the coalition. Thank you so much for that. Costa Rica is a reference in biodiversity conservation, and you just joined the coalition. What moved Costa Rica to join this coalition on Indigenous Peoples Food Systems?
Gracias, John. Muy buenas tardes, tengan sus excelencias. Muy buenas tardes, distinguidos pueblos indígenas que hoy nos acompañan en esta sesión y que a través de los canales de la tecnología también nos escuchan. Muy buenas tardes a todos los que nos acompañan en esta sala, participantes de diferentes países. Nuestro agradecimiento por estar en este espacio. Es un honor estar con ustedes hoy, representando al gobierno de Costa Rica y más aún a los pueblos indígenas por su conocimiento y, por supuesto, por sus sistemas alimentarios. Como ustedes saben y como ustedes reconocemos también que Costa Rica es un país comprometido con los recursos naturales, con la biodiversidad. Es un país profundamente comprometido con la acción climática y la conservación de la biodiversidad. Nuestro territorio, a pesar de ser un territorio pequeño, alberga el 6% de la biodiversidad del mundo. Y reconocemos a los pueblos indígenas también durante muchos siglos han demostrado ser los grandes protectores del planeta. Ellos conservan el 80% de la biodiversidad del mundo y a pesar de representar solo el 6% de la población y habitar el 28% de la superficie mundial, ellos nos comparten hoy a través de los años su sabiduría, su compromiso, sus conceptos y su vida sobre la biodiversidad y el respeto a los recursos naturales. Esa es la biodiversidad que hoy ha sobrevivido y que ha marcado muchos pueblos y sociedades en el desarrollo de nuestros países, que de alguna u otra manera en diferentes sociedades se han eliminado en aras del progreso. Por eso Costa Rica trabaja de la mano con los pueblos indígenas, que son los guardianes de la biodiversidad por excelencia, y para nosotros eso es fundamental. En Costa Rica habitan 24 pueblos indígenas y su papel ha sido determinante para la conservación de la biodiversidad de nuestro país, y también quiero agregar que ha sido determinante en la producción de alimentos sanos, orgánicos a través de generaciones. Costa Rica reconoce que no se puede transformar los sistemas alimentarios intensivos y comerciales del presente sin cuidar el planeta, el medio ambiente y la biodiversidad. Hemos aprendido que no se puede conservar la biodiversidad si no se conserva antes y no se protege desde antes los sistemas alimentarios de los pueblos indígenas, los cuales han generado alimentos durante cientos de años y, por supuesto, conservando la biodiversidad. Hoy más que nunca tenemos que aprender de nuestros pueblos indígenas, como han dicho mis colegas que me han antecedido. Ellos son capaces de alimentar comunidades, son capaces de mantener ecosistemas. Y para ello, también nuestro Ministerio de Agricultura promueve programas de incentivos agrícolas para la producción orgánica, de lo cual un 60% de este programa de incentivos se dirige a comunidades indígenas del Caribe costarricense para impulsar la promoción de acciones de buenas prácticas agrícolas y ganaderas que ellos ejercen en sus áreas productivas o certificadas orgánicamente, buscando esa diferenciación de precios en el mercado regional e internacional. Entonces, en el contexto actual de las discusiones sobre biodiversidad y su gran relación con los pueblos indígenas, dentro de este objetivo 3 de proteger el 30% del planeta y restaurar el 30%, es imperante y necesario trabajar con los pueblos indígenas. Igualmente, reconocemos el papel crucial que tienen nuestros pueblos indígenas como campeones de verdad en la adaptación y la resiliencia, a las buenas prácticas de manejo territorial, a esas transformaciones y de los sistemas alimentarios que se enfocan en conservar la vida, la naturaleza y la biodiversidad, lo cual es esencial para alcanzar hoy las metas de la Cumbre Mundial de la Alimentación, de los Objetivos de Desarrollo 2030, alimentar al mundo sin destruir al planeta en un momento de múltiples crisis y de retos fundamentales en la parte económica y política de nuestros gobiernos. En este sentido, hemos ya mantenido una serie de reuniones de trabajo con la Unidad de Pueblos Indígenas de la FAO para desarrollar una propuesta sobre restauración biocéntrica indígena en el país que pueda contribuir a esfuerzos mancomunados con la coalición. Actualmente, también quiero indicar que venimos discutiendo sobre, en el marco de la coalición de los pueblos indígenas, para contribuir en la restauración biocéntrica, la cual es fundamental y muy importante para mi país, Costa Rica, dentro de la relevancia como país biodiverso, respeta la acción climática, promueve la biodiversidad y la conservación de los recursos naturales en los sistemas agrícolas y pecuarios y que basa una parte importante del desarrollo en la preservación, la conservación y la adaptación a los ecosistemas productivos y agropaisajes sostenibles. Por todo ello, Costa Rica recientemente se ha unido a la coalición de sistemas alimentarios de los pueblos indígenas y estamos muy felices de ver cómo Colombia también se ha unido. Así que hoy invito a todos los estados que hoy nos escuchan a sumarse a esta coalición sobre sistemas alimentarios de los pueblos indígenas. Es ahora el momento ideal si queremos preservar la biodiversidad del planeta. Así que a los pueblos indígenas son capaces de guiarnos. Sigamos escuchándolos, sigamos trabajando con ellos para transformar los sistemas alimentarios cruciales, haciéndonos más sostenibles y resilientes hacia una producción sana, saludable e inocua para nuestro planeta y las futuras generaciones. Muchas gracias.
Carla, qué gusto escucharla. Podíamos estar horas escuchándola. Gracias por estar acá con nosotros. As you know, the coalition is a collective effort, and of course the Rome-based agencies are extremely active. So I want to invite my colleague and friend Alejandra Peró from WFP. She's the Global Advisor on Indigenous Peoples, and I'm going to hand over to her the facilitation of the event. Alejandra, please join me. And meanwhile, we are going to play the video of Ben Matthews, the Principal Advisor from the Ministry of Industries from New Zealand. Thank you so much. Over to you, Alejandra. Welcome.
Mana, kei ngā reo, raurangatira mā tēnā koutou katoa. Kia ora and greetings from Aotearoa, New Zealand. Indigenous peoples are particularly impacted by the effects of climate change on food security, posing significant challenges on food systems, cultural integrity, and holistic well-being. We believe that Indigenous traditional knowledge can play a vital role in addressing climate change due to its time-tested, holistic, and sustainable approach to environmental stewardship. Aotearoa New Zealand see the Indigenous Peoples Food System Coalition as an opportunity to showcase Māori thought leadership, innovation and knowledge as we work towards transforming global food system toward a more sustainable future. In the recent past, we have seen how natural disasters have overwhelmed our respective nations, highlighting the particular importance of this work. We look forward to submitting the recently completed report, A Horizon Scan of Indigenous Food Systems, Leadership and Knowledge, which highlights Māori excellence in leadership in food systems. Through this report, we hope to showcase the importance of Māori contributions through innovation, knowledge, and traditions in transforming our food systems. Most importantly, however, as we work together, we will ensure that the natural environment and its food systems can be preserved for future generations. I conclude with this simple yet effective Māori proverb: ko koe, ko au, ko tātou katoa. It is I, it is you, it is all of us. This proverb highlights and emphasizes the importance of unity, inclusivity in achieving the common goal. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa.
Thank you very much. And thanks to Ben Matthews, the Principal Advisor of the Ministry of Industries from Aotearoa, New Zealand, for that very strong message capturing that collective action that we've been hearing throughout the first session of this panel and of our event. So now we're moving into the second session, or the second part of our session, and we will shift our attention now to Asia, to biocentric restoration once again, that our representative from Costa Rica also spoke strongly about. And then, of course, a strong message from youth, as we have also Jessica Vega here with us. And then we'll open the floor to some questions and some statements from the floor. And then once again for some closing remarks, and then a closing ceremony from our friend Atama. So I would like now to turn my attention to Rajan Humagain, who is the chair of the Himalayan Peace Foundation and is also a member of the coalition. And I'd like to ask Raj, why is indigenous biocentric restoration important for sustainable food systems? Now, Raj, because we're running a bit running on time, I'm going to ask you to please keep to 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Alejandra. Namaste, good afternoon. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, Indigenous brothers and sisters. I'm deeply honored to be here in your presence today to discuss crucial issues that profoundly impact our beloved Mother Earth and all its inhabitants, be they indigenous or non-indigenous. According to the latest UNCCD report, a staggering 40% of Earth's land is currently degraded, directly affecting the lives of half of humanity. Deforestation and conversion of land for agriculture stands as the leading cause of this degradation. Indigenous peoples have been long the permanent caretaker of the land, safeguarding and revitalizing the ecosystems that sustain life. Their food and knowledge systems are a treasure accumulated over centuries of observation and adaptation. Their techniques represent the synergy between human needs and need of the natural world. Out of 476 million indigenous people inhabiting Mother Earth, 200 million depend on natural forest of their livelihood, for their livelihoods, such as hunting, gathering, sifting, cultivation. Today, the livelihoods of those very same people who are caring for the forest are at stake. Indigenous peoples are more vulnerable to shock and stresses, and their food systems are being threatened all around the world. The UN Decade of Ecosystem Restoration offers an institutional frame that has become crucial to reaching the objectives of 2030 Agenda. approached and led by indigenous peoples. They centered on their knowledge, territorial management, and food systems are critical and urgent. Thus, restoring degraded lands is an urgent global challenge that demands collaborative efforts. Therefore, I want to shed light on critical role of indigenous peoples' biocentric restoration practices in shaping a sustainable future of our planet. The principle of biocentrism is part of the founding principle of many indigenous peoples' society. This is the part of the answer why indigenous peoples managed to preserve 80% of remaining biodiversity, as Sister Tania mentioned before. Biocentric restoration is an intense approach to ecological renewal that acknowledges that our planet is a web of interconnected life forms, each with a right to exist and thrive. Indigenous peoples' biocentric restoration goes far beyond practical technique. It is rooted in a deep spiritual and cultural connection to Earth. The indigenous people biocentric restoration approach is an important line of work in the coalition that received immediate consensus from its steering committee since its creation. The coalition is already working on indigenous biocentric restoration in India, Thailand, Peru, and Ecuador. There are ongoing discussions on expansion of this work with indigenous peoples at the Center of Restoration in Costa Rica and some parts of India and as well as Colombia. This will be of extreme relevance in the frame of the COP26 pledge made to the indigenous peoples to receive $1.7 billion to support the advancement of their forest tenure rights and the greater recognition of their role as guardians of the forest and nature. Indigenous peoples' biocentric restoration is critical to address Target 3 of Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, which asks for the recognition that at least 30% of the terrestrial, inland water, coastal, and marine areas of the planet will be conserved as indigenous peoples' territories, and additional 30% will be restored. As we confront the pressing challenges of climate change, loss of biodiversity, and environmental degradation, we must draw from indigenous peoples' knowledge and leadership. I look forward for the next step that the coalition will make to move forward in this direction. In conclusion, my takeaway message to you is that we must work together with indigenous peoples to implement biocentric restoration practices on a large scale. This is the only way to ensure the long-term health of our planet and the well-being of all its inhabitants. Indigenous peoples have the wealth of knowledge and experience in these areas, and we must draw their experience and expertise to develop effective solutions. The urgent challenges of climate change, loss of biodiversity, and environmental degradation have to be addressed now. Only by working together, we can create a more sustainable future for all. Thank you, and dhanyavad.
Thank you very much, Raj, for also once again highlighting the importance of indigenous peoples' knowledge and the critical role that biocentric restoration can play in climate action and the conservation of biodiversity. I will now shift my attention to Mr. Pulman Chowdhury, who is also from Nepal, from the Tharo people, and he is president of the Asian Indigenous International Network. And Mr. Pullman was also a member of the Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues. We're speaking about the Asian context, and Asia, which is a region with the highest number of indigenous peoples, or an estimation of about 300 million. And I wondered if you could share some of your thoughts on why it's important to protect the indigenous peoples' food systems in the Asia region, and how the coalition can contribute to this. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Alejandra. हायरे हमरे ब्रह्मांड के मानव हुईती प्रकृति के सृष्टि हुईती 7 लोग 7 जुनी के संतान हुईती ई धरती मतारी सांची बात अग्नि देवता सांची बात ब्रह्मांड लोग सांची बात सय साथी सय बिनती बा हमन सुख नीन सुट देव शांति से रह देव गुरु गुरुआ गुसावन 100 लाख देवतन के दुहाई बा गुरु बाबा के दुहाई बा धरती मतारी दुहाई बा गुरु गोरखनाथ के दुहाई बा I just prayed here with my spiritual lines with the Tharu indigenous people Nepal is that we are human being of this universe, creation of the nature. We pray to the 7 layers of the universe, keeping witness to the earth, fire, water, and the whole planet. Please let us sleep in sound, live in sound and peace and harmony. Good afternoon, Excellencies, Indigenous leaders, distinguished panelists, and colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. It is an immense opportunity to address this remarkable occasion, the UN Food System Summit +2 stock-taking moment, where we gather to assess our progress and collectively shape the nature of sustainable indigenous peoples' food system. As indigenous people, our cosmology includes knowledge, practice, and wisdom that has enabled us to live in harmony with delicate ecosystem for generation. Our indigenous people food and knowledge system are living testaments of our religions and sustainable territorial management practice. Our knowledge system encapsulates harmony between humanity and nature, a lesson learned that echoes through the age and that today is more needed than ever amidst climate action and biodiversity extinction. The 21st UN Food System Summit called for transformational change to render current global food system sustainable and resilient. It is therefore imperative that we use this opportunity to move from publicity to action if we are to meet the Sustainable Development Goal 2030 agenda. When our Coalition of Indigenous People Food System was created 2021, I was the Asia representative to the United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues. Asia is one of the region of the world with the largest number of the indigenous people, more than 3 million people, 300 million people. I cannot emphasize enough how important this coalition is for Asia region. And this is why I call upon the state, indigenous people and research organizations in the Asia region to please join the ongoing work of this coalition. Together we can make our region more prosperous and inclusive for harmony and peace. I also want to highlight the importance of the global hub on indigenous people food system, and I am extremely grateful for the technical support they provide as a thinking and research tank for the coalition. The Global is now working on a new white paper on collective rights on nomadic peoples. This is fundamental for indigenous people, but also for biodiversity conservation. Let me tell you that we cannot protect biodiversity without protecting indigenous people's food and knowledge system. Often indigenous people, we don't receive social protection from the state because they don't understand our system. At the same time, they design the protection scheme, we are left behind. The Global Hub is working on another paper about how to integrate indigenous peoples into social protection and poverty reduction scheme. Final, ladies and gentlemen, in the face of climate change and biodiversity loss, the resilience of indigenous people food system can guide us towards a better future for all. However, this is required the meaningful participation and empowerment of indigenous communities, particularly women, youth, who play a crucial role in preserving our heritage and biodiversity. For food system transformation, we advocate for enhanced coordination among governments, indigenous peoples, and international organizations. It is fundamental to bolster thematic and political engagement within G7, G20 processes, and other relevant fora. The Coalition of Indigenous Peoples Food Systems is collective effort and movement for the change. Our food system have long been shaped by the wisdom of our ancestors who have protected the earth for generations. Today, we face challenges such as climate change, biodiversity loss, and food insecurity. In the face of this global crisis, the action of the coalition are driven by the vision of sustainable planet. Hence, if we are committed to save our Mother Earth, we must protect our indigenous people's knowledge and wisdom, because indigenous people's traditional knowledge and wisdom is itself scientific knowledge. I thank you for your attention. I stand ready to collaborate with all stakeholders in achieving our vision of sustainable planet for all. I thank you. Jai Guru Baba.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pullman. I've been told we're going to have to wrap up in about 15 minutes, so I'm going to ask our next speaker that will be focusing on youth. Jessica, if we could perhaps focus on some of the key messages. We've been hearing a lot from many of the other panelists on the importance of youth, right, and the role they play as in the future. So I'm hoping that you could tell us a little bit about the Global Youth Forum that you are heading also as an advisor, and the role that the coalition is playing in that youth forum. Thanks very much.
Buenas tardes, excelencias, distinguidos invitados, hermanas y hermanos indígenas. Es un honor y una responsabilidad continuar la palabra el día de hoy, porque las semillas que las y los abuelos nos heredaron han germinado para seguir siendo custodiadas y protegidas por las nuevas generaciones. La juventud enciende una nueva antorcha y los 4 mensajes abren nuevos horizontes mano a mano. Estas fueron parte de las palabras del director general de la FAO, Chun Dong-yu, en su mensaje Por siempre joven, después del Foro Mundial de la Alimentación del 2022, donde él también soportó nuestra campaña. Y a lo largo de este proceso que hemos emprendido las juventudes indígenas de las 7 regiones socioculturales, junto a la Unidad de Pueblos Indígenas de la FAO, sabemos que la chispa se transformó en la antorcha. La Declaración de Roma del 2017 fue nuestra primera reunión cercana y en el 2018 continuamos para establecer el Foro Bianual de Jóvenes Indígenas auspiciado por la FAO. En el 2021 logramos tener ese foro de manera virtual en el marco de la Cumbre de los Sistemas Alimentarios junto a los campeones indígenas de la alimentación. Posteriormente, en el Foro Global de la Alimentación el año pasado, lanzamos nuestra campaña Mi Food Vision Is, nuestra visión alimentaria es, y estaba alineada a esos 4 horizontes que mano a mano buscan continuar los compromisos. En este sentido, reiteramos nuestro agradecimiento como juventudes indígenas a la FAO y apreciamos el apoyo recibido por la coalición, por sumarse desde su lanzamiento a nuestras preocupaciones y aceptar el compromiso en el BOASU Food Lab. Respaldamos, por supuesto, respaldarnos es un compromiso que han hecho que nuestras visiones avancen. Ser la generación que necesita transformarse en estos contextos de crisis alimentaria, crisis climática e incluso la crisis económica requiere, por supuesto, de apoyo, de respaldo de las y los mayores. Y nos sumamos a esta invitación clara y abierta, amigable, que el primer ministro de Noruega y las y los ministros han hecho eco para que más estados se sumen a salvaguardar los sistemas alimentarios de los pueblos indígenas y continuar trabajando en alianza comunitaria. Nos congratulamos, por supuesto, del mensaje de la ministra de Colombia, que se ha sumado de manera general. Creemos que las juventudes indígenas estamos listas para continuar trabajando juntos y esperamos tener esa sesión especial junto a la Coalición de Pueblos Indígenas y los Sistemas alimentarios con líneas específicas que nos permitan responder a las preocupaciones que cada una de nuestras regiones tiene desde las localidades, desde sus espacios comunitarios, desde sus pueblos indígenas y sus procesos generacionales. Y sabemos que esta esperada segunda edición del Foro Global de las Naciones Unidas de las Juventudes Indígenas, que se celebrará del 16 al 20 de octubre, nos brindará esa oportunidad que estamos esperando, en donde más de 100 jóvenes indígenas participarán, dialogarán y lograrán recomendaciones que fortalezcan el rol de ser el agente de cambio, pero por supuesto también ser el agente de acción que contribuyan a proteger, preservar y continuar con los sistemas alimentarios indígenas. Nuestro mensaje es: la madre tierra está enferma, el conocimiento indígena es la cura, los jóvenes indígenas somos la medicina, nuestros sistemas alimentarios son el camino. Únanse a nosotros, únanse a nosotros, únanse a nosotros. Thank you. Gracias.
Many thanks to Jessica Vega with that very strong message as youth, as agents of change, and the future of Indigenous peoples depends on youth that will play a key role in conserving biodiversity and maintaining Indigenous peoples' food systems. So many thanks, and we look forward to the upcoming Youth Caucus. We will now open the floor to some questions and answers. We do know that we have some key representatives that would like to say a few words. So I will now hand the floor to His Excellency, the Minister of Agriculture and Livestock from Nepal, Mr. Beduram Busal. Thank you.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. Dear moderator, excellencies, and distinguished delegates, good afternoon to all of you. Nepal welcomes the work being put forward by this coalition on Indigenous Peoples Food System, which has two very important objectives: one, protecting and preserving Indigenous Peoples Food System, and another, upscaling good practices and lessons learned from Indigenous peoples on sustainability and resilience. Nepal fully supports and understands the importance of Indigenous peoples' food and knowledge system and the key role they play in our ecosystems. My country is convinced that you need to support Indigenous peoples if you want to be a prosperous nation. The recent CBD 16 discussions and Objective 3 of preserving 30% and restoring another 30% of the Mother Earth offers a unique opportunity for all of us. Our country has put Indigenous peoples' food and knowledge system at a high priority by including them in our national budget. We are also working on different policy level formulations to our commitment towards the Indigenous peoples' food system. Our vision is Indigenous peoples' food and knowledge system should be preserved and used with scientific method. We are in the process of making all our school meals be prepared from Indigenous people's foods produced by local community. Our commitment towards Indigenous people's food and knowledge system, biodiversity, and climate action aligns with the work of this coalition on Indigenous peoples and with the work of Global Hub on Indigenous Peoples Food System. Nepal wants to collaborate with this coalition on Indigenous Peoples Food System for a stronger, broader, and a longer relationship with indigenous peoples and their food systems. You can always count on our support to this coalition to support indigenous peoples' food and knowledge system, and we should like to look for opportunities to work with the governments and organizations to achieving our common goals of preserving and restoring our Mother Earth. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sorry. Thank you very much from Minister of Nepal for those very encouraging words of support and solidarity, and also highlighting once again the critical role that traditional indigenous peoples' knowledge plays, and also some key initiatives that are taking place right now in the country, like for example with school meals. I will now ask the representative of Spain, Mr. Moisés Morera, to also say a few words. Many thanks. Over to you.
Muchas gracias. España quiere agradecer la implicación y el apoyo mostrado a esta coalición por parte de los países miembros de la misma. Quiero hacer una especial mención y agradecimiento al embajador de México, don Miguel García Winder, y al coordinador de la coalición, don John Fernández, por su enorme trabajo en defensa de los pueblos indígenas. La cuestión de los sistemas alimentarios de los pueblos indígenas es de gran importancia para la cooperación española, la cual se enmarca dentro de nuestra política de apoyo a los derechos y el desarrollo de los pueblos indígenas y está articulada en torno al programa indígena de la Agencia Española de Cooperación Internacional. Como muestra de ello, España ha apoyado a la coalición desde su creación. En estos casi 2 años de existencia, la hemos apoyado institucionalmente en las reuniones e interacciones con otros foros y en esta ocasión con la participación de España en este evento especial. También somos activos en la promoción y visibilidad en nuestro trabajo con otros actores relevantes, como en la participación en el Foro Permanente sobre Cuestiones Indígenas de las Naciones Unidas. Junto al apoyo institucional y político que mantenemos también con nuestra interlocución permanente con la Unidad de Asuntos Indígenas de la FAO, desde España hemos realizado una contribución financiera cada año a la coalición para favorecer su funcionamiento. Quiero felicitar a Colombia por convertirse en nuestro miembro nuevo de esta coalición. Colombia tiene mucho que aportar a ella. Bienvenidos. Deseamos los mayores éxitos a esta coalición, los cuales redundarán en la mejora de las condiciones de vida de los pueblos indígenas. Muchas gracias.
Muchísimas gracias a España por ese apoyo y también esa contribución permanente que tiene y continua. Así que muchísimas gracias por ese apoyo a la coalición. I will now hand the floor to the Minister of Lesotho. We are very happy to have a representative here from the African region. Thank you very much for being here. Over to you.
Good afternoon, moderator, and all protocol observed. I would like to mention 2 issues before I deliver. I'm ambassador to Italy here, not minister from Lesotho.
Forgive me,
Ambassador.
Ambassador. Forgive me.
Yes, and I'm going to outlay a program that has been established in the SADC region as to host a very important program on indigenous food value chains development for Southern African Development Community. We have delivered this in collaboration with WFP and even with the SADC Secretariat in Botswana. I would like to share a few notes that some of the inputs for consideration that will be included in the discussion. One is an overall objective to include poverty eradication and marginalization, while the main objective of the concept is to improve food security by promoting availability, accessibility, and utilization of indigenous food. including knowledge and technologies within SADC region. Second, we would like to find a steering committee where we would like in the steering committee that we should have a private sector-led initiative. To ensure maximum traction, it is proposed that the program must be private sector-driven as opposed to public or civic society-driven. As a consortium of proactive business people with passion on indigenous-based enterprise development must be in the steering committee. 3, food self-sufficiency as the primary component. In the third one, food security and self-sufficiency should be the primary objective. And secondary research or knowledge co-creation as a prerequisite towards ensuring food sovereignty and foundation for poverty eradication. Indigenous food production systems become part and parcel to drive to achieve self-sufficiency. The fourth one will be holistic and integrated approach. This should take a holistic and integral approach that ensures balanced approach incorporating all key components of ecosystem, such as nature, culture, technology, and economic systems. It is so paramount that the approach should have an intergenerational and gender inclination for sustainability and the benefit of future generations. The fifth one is a pragmatic systems change. I'll just cut across it because it has a long note behind it. There are 2 key essential systems to ensure sustainable transformation and achievement of desired goals. One is different education and learning system to change incorporates indigenous knowledge systems as the core, and B, socio-economic systems transformation so that more relevant economic models is considered that resonates with the African indigenous cultural practices of Ubuntu. The sixth one, which is collaboration and cooperation with the high learning institutions in SADC and research institutions, so that we are able to commercialize of indigenous or new products, industrialization and development of rural communities in order to create vibrant household and community-based economic zones. The last one is that we should harvest and harness the benefits of existing initiatives. These are a number of current initiatives within SADC region that have started this transformation journey, such as Jati earthworm composter for the production of organic fertilizer and integral kombucha. It's come from Zimbabwe, can be tapped into to ensure regeneration of soils and improvement of livelihoods, health, and total well-being. We need to adopt a model that will be discussed there as to find that our people from the indigenous communities, that they should also be considered, that they have to be supported to be moved from poverty to prosperity through P2P model. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador from Lesotho, for highlighting, I believe they were 7 points, so thank you very much for that. In the interest of time, I will move very quickly now to our closing remarks from one of the strongest allies that we have in the coalition, the Ambassador, His Excellency Miguel Garcia Winder from Mexico, for some key messages moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Alejandra. I just, your introduction just came when my computer said I had low battery, so that means that I have probably had to hurry up. But Atama, you have been asking for our grandmother's presence and our grandfather. I hope my grandmother is not here, because when she hears me speak, she's going to pull my ears, you know, saying that I didn't do the job that you all guys deserve. I wanted to start with a little bit of history, but I think Tanya did a great job on the history. But I had to recognize some few things. And I think we had to recognize the leadership role that Alex Bugalinsky did to this coalition. without the work of Alex, and I know Alex is probably enjoying the outdoors someplace in Canada, without the work of Alex 2 years ago, we should not be here. So I think we need to recognize. Secondly, I think we need to recognize and express my thanks to the government of Italy, particularly Ambassador Archie, because about 4 weeks ago, we were in a big problem. The indigenous people did not have a floor in this conversation. It was through the conversation with the ambassador from Italy that we have this opportunity. So I think we are very thankful to him. It is important for us to be here. Obviously, I think the 7 countries and the 7 leaders of the regions should be here, not me, because I normally probably going to. Since we have very few times, I want to if I wanted to highlight one single message from all these interventions is, and I was joking with some of our friends when we were coming here, there is other event that's called the food waste and food losses over there. And I was talking to them and I said, you know, we should go over there and say, what you're discussing there, the solution is here. So we should move it over here. And I think that's the main message that I want to have is throughout these conversations, we all agree that the indigenous people food systems have an important contribution for the world. And that's what we have here. But I would like to probably think about moving forward. What do we need about moving forward? And hopefully I will not offend to anyone. But I want to start by one issue. If we want this coalition to succeed, we need to move forward, leaving on the sides our differences. We need to find something that unites us. It is sad, very sad for many of us, that when we are making a progress, for example, we are promoting this in the Committee on Food Security. Well, the same people that advocate indigenous food systems sometimes create obstacles for us to move. So I invite everyone to work together, leave on the side our differences, and find those points that can make us move forward as a unit. You know, I think that's one of the major challenges. The second challenges, I see there are 4. We need to continue to have political support. We are not asking at this stage, in this point, for your money. That's my second point. But we need political support. And the fact that Lesotho, that Colombia, that Mexico, that Spain, and all other countries are here, that minister that you have suggested, is an important recognition of that political support. So I invite everyone, you know, you go out to dinner with your wife, with your date today, talk about this coalition and get the support for us. The second thing is we need finance. We need to start working on finance. Eventually, you know, we need money to make this coalition work. There is going to be a lot of money coming from the countries for their own programs. But we need to find a way to get projects. And I invite you to help us to get that money. Without money, the coalition will not work. Then we need to keep on focus on unity. And finally, bring partners. The message of José Andrés is critical. We need to bring those partners, those unique partners that recognize the importance, that have the power to talk to the society outside this room. So I think those are the 4 things that I see in moving forward. And finally, 2 years ago, I forgot to turn off, I turned off my phone, because normally I do, but I forgot to turn off my iPad. And it was about this time of exactly 2 years ago. And when the representative from the Holy See was speaking, John is here, my iPad went off, and my 2 grandkids were singing happy birthday to me. And at that time, it really hits me that what I'm doing for this coalition, and this is my personal view, it is not for me. I have more history than future, but it's for them, for my grandkids. And in doing that, we need to keep on working in order to recognize that the progress and the benefits of few cannot be at the expenses of others. As somebody said, Frank, I think you said it today, we are exactly the same. Somebody this morning asked me about an important person walking on here, and I said, that important person has 2 arms, 2 legs, a head, and a heart, similar to us. There is no one above us, and I'm doing this just because I believe that we need to work to live a better world for the future generation, regardless of what they are. So join the coalition, talk about the coalition, and again, when you are tired of talking to the coalition, talk again about this coalition. The solution of other problems were in this room. Thank you so much, and hopefully we close it today.
Thank you very much for those key words: unity, partnership, finance, and leaving a better world for all. Thank you very much to all of you for being here during our special session on Indigenous peoples. We will now have a very short closing ceremony. Thank you very much. Over to you, Atama.
Thank you. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, panelists that we truly admire and honor, just to give you a short detail of what you are seeing in front of you, the white flowers is for Pachamama and Pachapapa. The accompanying different colors of the flowers are for the accompaniment of Mother Earth. This pot is a pot full of earth. Believe it or not, that after this pot of earth was brought from outside into the indoors of FAO, miraculously, the plant grew. Inside an air-conditioned room, believe it or not. Accompanying on this beautiful altar is betel nut and tobacco, which our people greet our ancestors who come to visit us, not only on Christmas. Also are the sacred roots and plants that we use for our cleansing in the time that our children are afraid, not of monsters in the closet. But these are the traditional knowledges that the indigenous peoples have come from all over the world, from the 7 regions of the socio-cultural and also spiritual regions, to come and unite together as one force to plant new beginnings here in FAO. Ladies and gentlemen, in this time, I would like to inform you that the coalition was born on indigenous lands, on indigenous territories, with the witness of indigenous ancestors and Pachamama and Pachapapa. We also want you to know that the seeds are very important as not ceremonial, not ritualistic, but commitments of indigenous peoples and member states to allow for growth to happen within rooms such as this. I must inform you that last year the coalition planted seeds in a ground zero of dirt. Look now, ladies and gentlemen, what have been born? What have the coalition and you created, giving new life and wonderful plant? This year, ladies and gentlemen, the plant has borne its babies. And for our very special session this evening to close, we are going to give our commitment once again. And we want to invite you, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. I'm sure some of you must have realized that to be supporting the coalition requires you to be part of the coalition, and to plant seeds, meaning you are the coalition for the future. Ladies and gentlemen, let's move on to this next very, very special item. It will be a ceremony, and this ceremony will be done in a very symbolic way according to the spiritual planting of seeds tradition from Northeast India coming from the indigenous Naga people. And in order for this to happen, I would like to invite all our panelists, our distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and of course, ministers and representatives of UN member states to join us here at the bottom, facing the altar, for us to together officiate and plant new seeds for the future of this coalition. I'm informed by Master Yon that there may be some member state representatives that want to be part of this ceremony. We welcome you in honor and friendship for you to come also to join us. So please do register yourself and your country here for a very important picture moment, because, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not kidding. Before we came into this building, we had a sacred ceremony outside. First of all, we honored the sacred holy state of Italy and Rome before we invited our grandparents and grandmas. And I tell you, they are truly here with us. Otherwise, we wouldn't have so much energy as we have now. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to pass the microphone to Sister Zin Norin Angkang for the incantation ceremony. She will teach you how to sing a sacred planting song. In the meantime, I invite the panelists to come and join us here at the altar. Please, from the left of the stage.
Shall we all rise as a respect to this ceremony? I am Zenarin from Tangkul Naga people. We consider seeds to be the sacred bond between Mother Earth and our way of life. This symbolic seed sowing act signifies unity, peace, love, harmony, and togetherness. This is our relationship with Mother Earth. Today, in this room, at this moment, I call upon my ancestors to join us to invoke divine blessings. Do join me as I chant. I say, oh hey 20 times. And the act of oh hey is you take your fingertips and you pull in as a symbol of planting seeds. So as we chant, as you join along with me, we will be planting the seeds, and that's how we will conclude the ceremony. Oh hey, 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 oh hui, oh hui, oh hui. We can plant all together.
Yes.
And we continue chanting.
Thank you, Zinorin. That was just the rehearsal. Now it's the real thing. So now we invite our distinguished ministers, our honorable guests, together with the indigenous leaders, to open the seeds, and each one of us will take one seed and we will do the whole thing over again.
Oh hey, 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 Hey.
Please sow the seeds of the coalition, and we know next year when we return with more members of the coalition, we will have more babies, more seeds to plant together, symbolically like today. Please stay where you are, because now, ladies and gentlemen, we want to invite everybody to witness a very important moment, a historical moment. We would like to invite the beautiful delegation of Colombia, represented by the Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development of Colombia, for a signing ceremony to officially join the coalition, witnessed by all of us, ladies and gentlemen, and together witnessed by Pachamama and our altar this afternoon. Congratulations and thank you and welcome to the coalition. Welcome to the family, Colombia. Once again, a big round of applause for the Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development of Colombia. We have been informed that we don't have so much time, ladies and gentlemen. But are you still in good spirits? Are you still in good spirits? Because we are blessed. We are blessed. We are truly blessed. Please allow me to lead us in a closing prayer. We indigenous peoples believe that when we invite our ancestors to come and join us, they are going to witness what we do for an entire, not just a lifetime, but multiple universal lifetimes, remembering that this is the good karma that we do. Secondly, in our tradition of indigenous peoples, when they come and visit us, we need to also invite them to return back to our territories. And for that purpose, please allow me to invite our ancestors to return back to our territories in your presence and in your honor. To God Almighty, an angel of the power of true nature, to the God of Mount Kinabalu, to the God of Mount Bawang, to the ancestors of the union of the holy mountains, the sacred mountains, the union of heaven and earth, to the queen of the earth, to the queen of the sea, to the ancestors of our land, to the ancestors that have come and guide us and are beside us for the whole day. We invite ancestors to bless all of us here, all delegations. Bless us for the purity, peace, goodness, and blessings for all of us, for humanity, intelligence, courage, loyalty, to accept and respect the existence of who we are. We ask for the blessing of all the ancestors who have arrived here through the path of the heavenly bridge to bless us and all United Nations countries, to continue the responsibility in their power and good governance in this world for those who are here and for those who have yet to come. We ask for a special blessing for all the discussions that we've had, for all the words that have been shared. May all those words resonate in our hearts, in our minds, and are placed in a very special memory in this particular time. We pray that the leadership of FAO and member countries of the UN be blessed on their journey out of this meeting, along with indigenous delegations that have traveled many, many miles to be here. We pray for the safety. We pray for everyone's awesome, highest intelligence that we have received from our Almighty Father in heaven, Allah Ta'ala, and hope that it is sown in our hearts for sake of goodness. Also, to Mother Earth and Father Earth and ancestors who have come and join us here today, we have ended in this moment of special prayer And we invite you to return back to our territories where our peoples also need your guidance and need your sanctity, and they need your approval for our daily lives. To end, once again, thank you, grandfathers, thank you, grandmothers, thank you, holy elders. All this I pray and ask for it to be granted in the name of Jesus. Arus rapus, arus rapus, arus rapus. Thank you. The closing prayer ceremony has now ended. We invite all panelists to remain just for a little while more for a photo session. Thank you.